Namaste and greetings. I, Dipanjali, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Learning. Today, we are gathered here for the second day of LPPYF, Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship Cohort 3.0. An online national summer school program, a 1-month immersive online law and public policy awareness certificate training course and internship program. This training program is organized by IMPRI, Center for Health, Dignity and Development. The chair for the program is Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI. Our expert panel for today's program includes Dr. Vahida Nainar ji, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ji, and Professor Dr. Ceena ji. Our expert panel for the program includes Shri Shailesh Gandhi ji, Mr. Sandeep Chahar ji, Dr. Vahida Nainar ji, Professor Dr. Ceena ji, Professor Abdul Hafiz Gandhi ji, Mr. Himanshu Shekhar ji, Advocate Lara Jaisani ji, Professor Soumya Uma ji. The convener for this course are Dr. Ajay Godwarthi ji, Advocate Shailin Thomas ji, Dr. Simi Mehta ji, and Dr. Arjun Kumar ji. Proceeding further, we welcome everyone to this transformative journey and appreciate your dedication in investing your time, energy, and commitment to gaining a profound understanding of the crucial role and intricate detail of policy and action. We have also shared course outline and reading resources to your email for your kind perusal. Before we start today's session, I would like to state the housekeeping announcement. Please join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions on the Q&A box. The question must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. To begin today's session, I would like to invite Ma'am Vibhuti Patel ji, a visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Gitanjali, for introducing the course. Today we are in day 2 of the LPPYF Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship on advancing justice, bridging gaps in public policy enforcement. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, Dr. Ajay Godwarthi ji, and lead advisor, Dr. Shalu Nigam, and coordinators, Vaishali Singh, Priyanka Negi, Riksha Jalan, and you, Dipanjali, moderator, for putting this course together. Lot of work has gone for this course. So first, brief recap of day 1, inaugural address by Shri Shailesh Gandhi ji on accelerating time-bound justice delivery, and Shri Sandeep Chahar ji on social inclusive justice. Now, first, the introductory lecture was by Shri Shailesh Gandhi ji, who gave a very wonderful data-driven detailed conversation on time-bound justice, and it was mind-blowing. His valuable insights on justice system began with the statement that time-bound justice is easily possible. Still, it is not happening. According to Niti Aayog policy paper, it will take 324 years to clear backlog of cases in India. Now, we do not have justice system. That's what he said. And he said that what we have is injustice system. And he also gave an equation that delayed justice is equal to injustice. At current speed, Mr. Gandhi said that by 2047, we will land up with 10 crore cases. An average time for disposal of cases is over 2.5 years in India. And in Indian prison, over 78% of prisoners are under trials, and they languish mainly because of the delayed processes of the legal system. Lokpal is not a solution, and he said that also that the simple principle of first come, first served is not followed in our justice system, and the vacancies of the post for judges are not filled up for years. Inadequate judges perpetuate injustice system, and we must demand from the state to fill up the judicial vacancies. So today, wrongdoers do not fear law, and lawlessness and the bulldozer Raj are maintained by the local government. And if there is political will and public pressure, we can achieve zero vacancy of judges' position. But that's not the reality. India cannot become the first-rate nation state with a third-rate justice system. That's what Mr. Shailesh Gandhi stated. Our law courts do not follow the law. We need people's movement to improve judicial delivery system. And he also told that Right to Information Act of the our country, which was adopted in 2005, which was one of the best 5 laws of world for transparency, but because of the gross misinterpretation and non-implementation and dilution, what we see is that we are not able to get the proper results. So this is any citizen can read or and understand the right to information, but pressure from below is the only solution. People's movement is the only solution to change this depressive scenario. The second inaugural address was by Sri Sandeep Chachra in his lucid way of delivering the ideas where he put forward perspective that social justice is an approach. Thinking of an egalitarian society, how well-being opportunities are distributed equally. When there is an unequal distribution of privileges, the societies need to redistribute and lay out assumptions for equality and justice. Dr. Ambedkar pushed this idea of the egalitarian world, and Mr. Chachra also said that he shared his experiences of last 6 to 8 months of Action AIDS India's drive and the campaign called People's Agenda process and its lessons. And he stated, and I quote, key question in our quest for justice in which 320 human rights defenders actively seeking ideas from marginalized sections of India in 300 districts interacted with 18.5 lakh people through 51,000 meetings were quite commendable. And these people were India's deprived, exploited people. They were Dalit, bonded labor, sugarcane workers, salt pan workers, farmers, denotified tribes, nomadic tribes, informal sector workers, craft persons, construction workers, scheme workers, waste cleaner, and night soil cleaner, so on and so forth. What he said, that activists were driven by the objective of service to and solidarity to the most oppressed people of our country. They were striving to seek answers for mind-boggling questions such as what should be the agenda of social justice, people's agenda, what should be the social and ecological justice in the Indian context. And in this effort, they found the caste is in work. And in the world of work and in the life worlds of the toiling poor, caste plays very important role. Segregation of people according to caste and the lowest end of social hierarchies are Dalits in India who are castigated and pushed to do ritually polluting work. And he says this caste exists in all religious groups, whether you are Indian Christian or Indian Muslim or Indian Sikh. Caste plays a prominent role. He also said that we have legislation such as Anti-Untouchability Act, Anti-Atrocities Act, Equal Remuneration Act, Bonded Labor Act 1976, Bonded Labor Prohibition Act, Abolition of Manual Scavenging Act, Devdasi Prohibition Act. But at the same time, what we see as these acts are not implemented judicially, and the caste-based sex work in which Dalit girls are dedicated to the temples in the name of Devdasi or Jogti, that is still happening. So intersectionality is a very important concept which we need to apply in our work. There are innumerable blind spots that betray embeddedness of caste in our social thinking, and this results in a gap between de jure and de facto scenario. He invoked Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's contribution and asked, how long will it take to annihilate caste in the world of work on cremation ground? Or who are the people who are on the cremation ground or a burial ground? Who are the people who are priests and pandas? Who are the people who are working in different sectors of the economy? I think it is very important that if our quest for social justice is a quest to see an end to caste system, and also embedded nature of injustice within the caste system. And it is crucial to revitalize reservations in services and private enterprises. Structural basis of caste needs to be challenged and asset ownership needs to be distributed. And that's what was a very important, which generated very lively discussion. And we also had both the experts who answered all the question, and we ended with a common understanding that inclusion is future. Dr. Shalu Nigam also shared her experiences based on her legal activism and legal research, and averred that we face many hurdles while assessing justice system, but should not deter that should not deter us from fighting injustices individually as well as collectively. So now coming to today's deliberations on democracy, I think in civic studies, we all learned that democracy is a system of governance in which power is vested to people and exercised by them directly through freely elected representatives. So now now Dr. Vahida Nainar will unpack democracy, politics, and praxis. And Dr. Shalu Nigam will enlighten us about the legal hands. And we have Professor Ceena who will also give us understanding of how to write research paper. So I think we have going to have a very, very important 3 sessions today. Over to IMPRI.
Thank you, ma'am, for walking us through the introduction of the program. Now, I am delighted to invite Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigamji, visiting senior fellow at IMPRI, advocate, author, and researcher for gender and human rights, for her first session on legal hands. Over to you, ma'am.
And good evening to all of you. I'll just share my screen. Yeah, so today we will talk about human rights and the disenfranchised, and it is basically about the justice for poor. So what is happening at this level, and how the things are going at the ground. I'll just go through that. Yeah, so I'll just start with this Santhal song, and this is about forest degradation, loss of food, and heightened conflict in one of the district in Odisha. And it reads, a long time ago in the 2 age, there were many creepers in the forest. A breeze brought rain from the sky in the right time. We made a long way short. We built roads after clearing the jungles. We built cities and markets. As the forest was gone, the rain stopped, and we used to eat a ball of rice. Now we are sharing only a fistful. So even two real brothers do not get along. Daily they fight. So this is how they express that, how the impact of cutting forest is impacting the life of the families. And we know the scholars have spoken that, that no citizen should be so rich that he can buy another, and none should be so poor that he is compelled to save himself. If we talk about the Indian context, our former Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, he said that the economic issues are most vital for us, and it is of the highest importance that we should fight our biggest enemies, that is poverty and unemployment. And if we talk about sustainable development goals, which is in very much UN is talking about that, and Indian government has taken some steps, and it says the goal number 1 is about ending poverty. So the report says that more women than men are living on less than $1.90 per day, and when the goal says that we should leave no one behind, and it says that number of people living in extreme poverty has declined in past since 1990, but still 647 million people are living in extreme poverty. And if we talk about India, the report talks about multidimensional poverty, and it says that 1 in every 4 person in India is living in poverty. And similarly, we have this impact on children, going to school, children facing malnutrition. So all these kind of data is available. we have also seen that during the COVID, how global GDP decreased by estimated by 3.5%, and pandemic has pushed 124 million people into extreme poverty. So, there is a lot of poverty gap, and there are some people who have earned a lot of wealth, and there are some people who have gone more poor. So even the child mortality also increased, and the working hours fell by 8.8%, and people lost job, and there was a lot of economic insecurity. So this report, it came last week. The gender, if we talk about gender gap report, now in this report, India fares worse than Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bhutan. So if you see that India is ranked at level 5 among these 7 countries. So it also says that women in India make rupees 40 for if a man is earning rupees 100. So this is the kind of huge disparity in terms of wages. And also, if we compare the number of women and men in workforce, we have 28% women in formal workforce and 82% as compared to 82% men in the formal workforce. This is the picture of World Food Program and the page for India. It says that 21% of people are still living on less than US dollar 1.90 per day. And it says that 1/4 of the world's undernourished people are living in India. Globally, if we see the Global Hunger Index in 2023, it shows that India ranked on 111th position out of 121 countries. So, this is the Global Hunger Index ranking over the period, from 2009 to 2021. So 2009, we were at 65 position. We came to 55 in 2014, and then now the 2021, 101, and 2023, 111. So there is this report, Asia Pacific Human Development Report, and it says that there is a persistent wealth divide in our country and even at the world level, which is because of globalization and technological advances, they have created new opportunities, but it is not inclusive. It has excluded people on margins, and specifically women are only 23% of the labor force. So for self-employed workers, situation is more critical, and they constitute nearly 60% of labor force in 2019. So, so how this market-based policies are resulting in inequalities in terms of income and availability of resources. This is about at the global level. There is a Shell company which is earning 2 billion. They're getting subsidy per year, and the employee who is working there is earning only $1,500 and surviving on the food stamps. And in India, we don't have even the food stamps. So, but in Indian situation, we have the gig workers. Now, gig workers are basically, if you go by the NITI Aayog website, it's expected to grow by 2.35 crores by 2029. Now, these are the individuals who are employed transactionally, on a time or task-based manner, and 15 million freelance workers and 90 million jobs could potentially increase. And they are basically, doing jobs like, the delivery guys, those who are sharing rides, those who are doing microtasking, or even those who are in IT design and management and other kind of works. So how this gig economy, which is developing, which is affecting most of the workers, workers are getting low wages. There is no employee protection. There is decrease in tips. They are forced to work for long hours without any social security measures. It is affecting small producers because they find it difficult to make profit. They have to pay the royalties. They have to, they're forced to use tech platforms. And but who is benefiting from this gig economies? industries and the big corporates who are, consolidating their wealth, like they're colonizing the entire market. So this is the kind of impact of this kind of economy. Now, last week there was this report by how Amazon, the people who are working and delivering, how the kind of problems they are facing during this hot summer weather. So people are being fainted, while delivering food, while climbing stairs, and they're facing a lot of problems. And the companies, the big companies, they have not done anything, in terms of providing facilities, to provide protection and during heat, and all these kind of things are going on. And there was this whole kind of, these workers are getting unionized, and now they are asking that the companies should provide us facilities, and they want, one of the demand is to prevent harassment of the employees. And last week there was a kind of people are signing up the petition saying that something should be done for these workers. So this is the kind of extreme inequalities which is going on within the country. And if you read the Oxfam report, it says that in India, 5% of people own more than 60% of the country's wealth. This report is available as Survival of the Richest. And it says that if Indian billionaires, they are being taxed once at 2%, and so that will provide the money which will be sufficient to feed the malnourished in the country for 3 years. Between 2012 and 2021, 40% of wealth created in India has gone to just 1% of population, and only 3% of wealth has gone to the bottom 50%. So we are adding more billionaires, but what is happening at the ground level is that people are getting more poorer and poorer. So when they say that there is a vast difference between haves and the have-nots, so this is how the things are going on. So the number of hungry Indians, they have increased up to 350 million in 2022 as compared to 190 million in 2018. So there is a lot of hunger which is there, where people are facing a lot of starvation deaths, and especially the children are under 5 years of age. So Oxfam adds that India has the world highest number of poor. That is, they put this figure as 228.9 millions. It says that the taxes should be collected from the rich, and the kind of wealth should be redistributed. So it is because the failure to tax rich people and the corporation that the inequality is increasing, and therefore the government is taking more tax from the middle income kind of people and the poor people, because in terms of VAT and other kind of taxes, which is increasing inequalities. So the food insecurity is increasing. Around 10% of Indians are experiencing food insecurity. There is a study by Public Health Foundation of India, which is conducted in 2023, and it says that in Sonipat, Haryana, and in Vizag, Andhra Pradesh, the dietary intake among people is reducing, and more women are being reported to face higher food insecurity as compared to men. The nutritious food such as dairy, fruits, vegetables are found missing from poor women they're not consuming this kind of food. So and the study says that a lot of wastage of food is going on due to during transportation from farm to plate. So what has been done during the past few decades? This is in 1990 that a lot of people were dying due to starvation deaths, and PUCL then filed a petition, a public interest litigation before the Supreme Court, saying that under Article 21, we talk about right to life. So people have right to life with dignity, and food should be distributed to people because that is being rotting in the food corporation godowns. So and the rats are eating that. Those the wheats and other things, and people are dying outside because of starvation. So The Supreme Court in this case has given it. This case went on for a long time, and Supreme Court has given various decision in terms of employment assurance schemes, PDS. It's consolidating PDS, public distribution system. The schemes such as integrated child development schemes, national maternity benefit scheme, and for midday meal scheme for children. So all those kind of schemes have been worked out. So the court passed on interim orders in this case, and demands were made to to meet a National Food Security Act, and there was a whole campaign, Right to Food campaign was initiated. Anybody who's interested that how this the history of this Right to Food campaign, you can go to their website, and they raised the slogan "Bhuke Pet Bhare Godam," starving bellies and the godowns are full. So these kind of things were going on at the ground level, and then the National Food Security Act was passed in 2013. And it says that the eldest adult female should be recorded as the head of household for the purpose of public distribution ration cards. And it talks about all kind of schemes, midday meal schemes, ICDS, and giving special benefits to pregnant and lactating women. So, and Professor Bakshi, he said that the kind of new politics was broadly going on at the ground level, and he called it as a constitutional politics. But there are problems with the way the things were handled, and some of the scholars, they said that the language of right is being used to argue for social change, but because the PDS system has a long history of implementation, so there was a problem in terms of implementing the scheme, because it is also linked with Aadhaar, and many citizens were denied benefits. So there are a lot of problems with the implementation. There are some people who don't have Aadhaar card, they are being excluded. Also, at times, your fingerprints are not matching. Your Aadhaar card is, has lost. So people are being denied benefits by the local ration shop, and this has led to a number of starvation deaths in various places. So, but the activists, they are demanding that the kind of food which is being distributed through the Anganwadis or through the system, it should be more protein rich. It should contain more legumes, eggs, meat, milk, and fish. But again, these are denied due to various reasons. So also, if you talk about the Human Rights Council, they talk about expanding the scope of the right to food, and they said that the food should be available at the lower prices, and there should be we should focus on wide range of diverse food containing micronutrients. We should focus on diverse farming. Women who are the principal caregiver of younger children, they should be involved in decision making about food and feeding the young children, and we should adopt a human rights framework. So what are the solution to this problem of food? Now, and to this poverty, inequality, and starvation. So we have welfare state. The Constitution of India talks about welfare state. It talks about fundamental rights and directive principles. We have various laws and policies such as employment guarantee scheme, right to health, right to education. All these have been expanded over the period of years. There are a lot of Supreme Court judgments which are there, which we can go through. So what are the learnings? Learnings are that human rights do not exist in vacuum. So we have to make the state accountable for preserving human rights, and the justice should be provided by the state to the people, and citizens' right to life with dignity should be maintained. So, and we have to talk about social and economic rights, and also civil and political rights, which are being denied to those who are on the margins. So we have seen that a lot of struggles have been going on at the ground level, where people are demanding their rights. And the thing is that where do we stand? We have to decide that are we standing with people or should we stand with the state? Because with the current kind of situations, a lot of questions can be raised. For example, the Constitution of India defined India as a welfare state, but how this decision to allocate resources by the government, how these decisions are being taken, what are the duty of the states with our citizens, why claiming citizenships, the entitlements is difficult for some people because some people are easily getting the different things done, but some people are not even getting the proper food and basic necessity of the life. So why the state is doing this kind of differentiation in terms of distributing resources, power, and other kind of privileges. So we have right to shelter, right to health. They should be declared as fundamental rights in the Indian Constitution because at the time of independence, when the Constitution was being made, they say that we don't have resources because Britishers exploited us and we don't have resources. But now for past 70 years, we have resources. But the thing is that resources are not equally being distributed. So we can debate about freebies and other kind of things which is being debated in the political arena. But what about Human Development Index, poverty, starvation, and inequalities which are persisting and which should be eradicated? So I'll just end here to say that hunger is not an issue of it is the result of political failure. It is result of inequality. It is the result of political the willingness. So and these are the questions which are related to social and distributive justice. So we can take questions. I'll just stop sharing this. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a very thorough and enlightening presentation. Before we take questions, ma'am, I would like to ask both Vibhuti ma'am and Shalu ma'am if we can go ahead with Vahida ma'am's session first, and we
Yeah.
can take all the questions all together after Vahida ma'am's session.
Fine. Yeah.
If both the experts agree, then
Yeah.
we should go ahead.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. That being said, I am delighted to invite Dr. Vahida Nainar ji, independent researcher, gender and human rights consultant. We welcome you, ma'am. And if you're ready, please take it from here.
Thank you very much. And I apologize. I did have plotted 6 to 7 free. I would definitely go on up to 7:30. I thank Dr. Nigam for her presentation also because it, also relates to the overall concept of democracy. Before I begin, I would like to thank IMPRI and all the people associated with IMPRI for giving me this opportunity to talk about this important topic, and it's always a pleasure to be part of the faculty of IMPRI courses. So thank you very much. So today I'm going to talk about democracy, policy, and governance, and we have just come out of what is known as the largest democratic event, the largest display or process of democracy that the world sees. So yes, I did get the message about starting my video, and I will. But the reason why I did not is because I do not have a very stable connection, and that's why I have kept my video up. So please do excuse me. So we have seen democracy, a significant aspect of democracy, that is people's participation here in India. And talking about this right now is very, very pertinent then to start with a really understanding democracy as such. What in this presentation I'm going to talk about is, how do we understand democracy? What is the spectrum involved? What are the different forms it takes? What do we mean when we say democracy, and what actually does the word democracy entail? And how does democracy influence policy making, governance? Is what kind of basis does democracy provide for governance and policy making in any nation? And all of these points we talk vis-a-vis the experience we have of democracy here in India, the challenges that we face today um, on our democracy, and some points or observation in conclusion. So democracy, as Vibhuti also mentioned, we know democracy as defined as the rule by the people, and thus there is no firm understanding of what democracy is beyond. This is a very basic and simplistic understanding that democracy is ruled by the people, given where the word comes from. But there is what is known as spectrum of democracy based on the extent of involvement of people and the issues and the diversity of people involved in this process is also in having a um, say in where one falls, where a country falls within the spectrum. So the spectrum ranges from no involvement of people to limited or symbolic involvement of people to greater degree of participation of people, sometimes direct participation of individuals, and to substantive participation of people, or what is known as substantive democracy. So based on this spectrum, we have different uh, types of democracy that we see that is in different nations. In the US, for example, what is known as pluralistic democracy, where there is competition amongst various interest groups, which prevents any single group from dominating the field. The emphasis is on participation, on representation of diverse interest groups. Then we have democracy in Switzerland, which is like participatory democracy, which allows for grassroots involvement in governance and deliberations and consensus building through referendums and initiatives, direct initiatives, and which are often associated with local governance structures. In Canada, the emphasis is on deliberations and discussion, where citizens are engaged in informed discussions, reasoned discourse, and public deliberation in the decision making. The idea is that the it views deliberation as essential for the legitimacy and effectiveness of democratic governance. Then you have what to the extent one knows and has studied what is the substantive democracy, mainly in the Scandinavian countries of Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, where it is understood as inclusive policies, particularly on social welfare, equality, and empowerment of marginalized groups. So it goes beyond procedural aspects of democracy. So when we look at the various spectrum of democracy, and we say that there is democracy of all these types. The fact is that it is only a very inclusive form of democracy that can really be called democracy. Anything else is a version of it, but not necessarily, I believe, democracy. And what does one mean when one says that? Because the experience of India has shown that the understanding of democracy, the larger social consciousness, is that it is procedural, that there is emphasis on election of people's representative, and this election system is rather robust, which is why it is known as the largest democracy in the world, to the extent that it is decentralized unto the village level. But is the understanding of democracy goes beyond that in the larger consciousness of people, but that doesn't seem necessarily to be the case. The democracy is understood as the involvement of people practically. When one talks about people, we are talking about the all included the marginalized, the people at the population at the lowest end of the spectrum, and their involvement practically ends at the end of election. That is the understanding of democracy in the larger consciousness of people here. So through elections, people organize in multiple competing groups representing different social, economic, regional interests, based on which there is negotiation and compromises amongst these groups for decision making. And that is, the broader understanding of democracy here. The aspects of then when one says that that is definitely one of the critical aspects of democracy, but not adequate or complete. What does one mean by when one says a holistic or substantive democracy? So there are aspects of substantive in democracy um, that we will discuss what one means when one talks about holistic uh, democracy. It does not end with people electing representation, but it is a continuous process. This understanding of substantive democracy is actually embedded in the Constitution, but that is not understood as involving, as also inclusive of the democratic processes and structures. Because given what happened in this last elections and the build up to it, particularly in the last decade or so, what was happening is there was concerns raised as to the quality of democracy or the democracy, the undermining of democracy. And there were many views, other views that were put forward, particularly by educated, people who were academics, who were leading in this thing, were professionals. How can one say that democracy is being undermined, particularly when there are regular and robust elections happening at various levels, at village panchayat levels, at state level, national level? So how is it possible that there can be concerns about undermining of democracy? It is for this that we need to understand what is the holistic understanding of substantive or substantive democracy. It includes several key features of democracy, which is the first one is, of course, the inclusive political participation, which encourages broad participation in the political process by all sectors of society, including marginalized groups. Support mechanisms for citizens' engagement and influence over decisions. Then there is aspect of the protection of fundamental rights and freedoms, which ensures civil liberties of freedom of speech, press, assembly, religion. It guarantees political rights, including the right to vote, run for office, participate in political processes. The rule of law, which enforces laws consistently, impartially, and ensuring, equality before law, equal protection of law for all citizens, and that the existence of a proper legal framework and judicial independence is aspect of the rule of law. Then one is talking about the aspect of accountability and transparency, which is maintaining the government, holding the government accountable through checks and balances, independent oversight institutions, and mechanisms for citizens to hold the government accountable. This is institutions and processes that promote transparency in government decision making and operations. And another larger aspect of this is social and economic equality, which through which one strives to reduce disparities in wealth, education, health, um, uh, equality in all of that, to ensure an equal access of opportunities and resources to all citizens, and to implement policies that address social justice. And then you have an aspect of pluralism and tolerance that supports diverse and pluralistic societies where different opinions, cultures, and lifestyles are not only respected, but they are encouraged to proliferate and live with dignity. And there is an open dialogue and cooperation amongst various groups and social and political groups that is fostered. Effective governance is another aspect of holistic democracy, where that ensures that government institutions are effective in delivering public services and responding to needs of people, including giving an efficient and effective, being efficient and effective in public administration, and of course, an active civil society. Uh, a civil society a vibrant civil society where there are active non-governmental NGOs, community-based groups, women's groups, human rights groups, advocacy organizations that contribute to the democratic processes that acts as a bridge between the people and the policymakers and governments. And there is support for the role of civil society. There is encouragement of the role of civil society in monitoring government actions and advocated on behalf of public interest. So these all features collectively contribute to what an understanding of democracy that is holistic, that is substantive, where the focus is on achieving meaningful democratic outcomes and that improve the quality and life for all citizens, um, all citizens, and this collectively it forms the democracy as we know it, which is way beyond understanding of procedural aspects of democracy, as in people represent, electing their representative, but not limited to people electing their representative, but continued engagement with the government and the decision making. When such understanding of democracy is in place, it has significant and wide-ranging influence on policy making and governance. Um, so, if you have an inclusive political um, goal of inclusive politics, then it also reflects in policy formation because it encourages an involvement of wide range of stakeholders in policy making process, including the lowest denominator of the society, the marginalized sections, the minorities, and address the needs of all segments of society. Then there is mechanisms for public consultation, inviting public views on policies, public hearings, online platforms, enabling citizens to participate in governance processes, to gather diverse perspectives and inputs, and lead to more comprehensive and representative policy. In terms of accountability and responsive goals of democracy, it influences, transparent processes in decision making, budget allocation, government operations, etc., that allows citizens to scrutinize and hold officials accountable. This also leads to mechanism in terms of governance. It leads to establishment of independent institutions such as ombudsmen, anti-corruption bodies, auditor control general that provide oversight of government actions that ensures a certain amount of accountability. At the same time, it encourages or introduces effective means for public feedback and complaints so that the policies that are instituted can be adjusted, reformed, tweaked based on the impact and public reception of these policies, making them more responsive to the needs of people and citizens. Protection of rights and justice also then encourages a robust legal frameworks which are crafted to protect fundamental rights and ensure equal treatment of law. There is focus on human rights that prioritize protection and promotion of human rights, civil liberties, and laws that do not infringe upon individual rights and freedoms. There is also emphasis on social and economic justice leads to policies aimed at reducing inequality and providing equitable access of resources and opportunities to all the citizens. Also included is within it is a strong independent judiciary where laws are applied impartially and in a manner that is non-discriminatory. Uh, the substantive goals of substantive democracy is achieved in policy making by evidence-based policy making. It fosters evidence-based policy making. It is policies are formulated on the basis of empirical evidence and data-driven analysis, ensuring that decisions are informed by accurate information. So, which gives it a chance to be effective and have an impact at the ground level. There are often consultation with experts and technocrats that ensures policies are technically feasible and sound. There are regular assessment and feedback mechanisms allow for adjustment and improvement of policy. So the policy making is informed by evidence-based research and data, which has greater potential for it being impactful and effective. Good governance principles enhances efficiency and effectiveness, use of resources. Long-term sustainability is also a key consideration to address future challenges. There are sometimes merit-based but also inclusive appointments in institutions and so on. There is ongoing capacity building and professional development for public officials to ensure that they're capable of meeting the needs and demands of providing of public administration and providing services. The influence of civil society, a holistic understanding of democracy ensures that there is a robust civil society that can influence policy through advocacy, lobbying, monitoring government actions. Civil society organizations play a key role in educating the public about policy issues and get informed participation of the people in the democratic processes. There is the civil society is encouraged and supported, and it provides a platform for advocacy and social mobilization. Government themselves gives a potential for government to collaborate with civil society organizations to implement programs, monitor outcomes, and gather feedback. Then you have civil pluralism, promotion of social justice, pluralism and tolerance, where policies are shaped by multitude of perspectives and debates. The diversity helps in crafting policies that are more balanced and considerate of different viewpoints. There is always included a mechanism for dialogue and conflict resolution that mitigates social conflicts, and the other just a moment. Yeah. Then we have also sustainable development as a goal and promotion of social justice and equality that encourages policies aimed at reducing social and economic inequalities, and that resources are distributed to all citizens in a way that is equitable. So that is the kind of long-spanning range of influence a holistic understanding of democracy has in policy making and eventual governance. So if we talk about democracy here in India, well, it helps to compare what has been the structures. So while democracy in the larger political consciousness is understood as robust electoral participation of people, there are indeed structures within India, structures embedded within the constitution in India that allows for all these various aspects of holistic democracy to function at the same time, regardless of the fact that these are not necessarily understood as included as part of the understanding of democracy in the larger political social consciousness here in India. So we do have a vibrant electoral process We have political participation and inclusivity embedded in the constitution. There is India's democratic framework, which ensures representation of diverse groups through multi-party system, reserved seats for scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, increasing representation of women, regional formation of regional interest groups. There are regular elections at local, state, national level with voter turnout and strong public engagement in the democratic process. You can argue that that has not been so in the recent one, but the structures definitely exist for that. Similarly, the structures exist for rule of law. India does have what is a robust independent judiciary that plays a role in upholding constitutional rights and protection of rights and freedoms. There is a comprehensive legal structure that supports rule of law implementation and enforcement that can vary significantly. There has been, I cannot say as we speak today there is, but there has been, and that which has contributed to a great deal of towards the progress of democracy in India, an active civil society with numerous NGOs, advocacy groups, and social movements that influence policy and hold government accountable. There has been a free press. Uh, uh, I would not go to the extent that they to say that they don't exist anymore. All I would say is their functioning has been seriously undermined in recent times. Similarly, human rights groups, there are constitutional institutional protections of human rights, constitution that guarantees fundamental rights, freedom of speech, religion, equality before the law. There are a series of welfare programs that have been instituted, both through legislation and through policies, and some of which my previous speaker has elaborated. So structurally, all these aspects do have existed. What has one seen in the past decade or so is that each and every aspect of the larger the larger extensive understanding of democracy, whether one is talking about rule of law, protection of rights and freedoms, um, uh, uh, social welfare and equality, social welfare, economic policies, all that have been seriously undermined in recent times. Um, what one has seen is that um, there has been uh, undermining of active civil society. Numerous NGOs and community-based organizations have lost their, licenses or registration to function and provide the services and play the bridge gap between the people and the government in recent times. If you talk about rights, political rights and freedoms, we have seen how these rights and freedoms have been curtailed for many aspects. Professionals, we have journalists who have been questioned, who have been incarcerated. There is a series of incarceration. There is media that is not free, or there is no freedom to speak. There has been um, complete takeover of media by the government. There is no transparency in policy making and decision making. The last decade has seen several legislations that have been passed at midnight hour in the parliament, which has seen no debate. They have been passed. You have seen the opposition completely suspended in the parliament, and you have seen complete takeover of institutions as arms of the government. So any kind of transparency and accountability process mechanisms that exist has been compromised. So there are several institutions that have been compromised. It is this undermining of each and every, chipping away of each and every of these key features of democracy, of substantive democracy, that has over the last decade or so seriously undermined the quality of democracy that India has. But in addition to that, even without these, there is a lack of understanding of this holistic structure existing, and the fact that all these institutions that are supporting these goals of sustainable or substantive democracy must work in tandem with each other, which does not necessarily happen. And what happens is the fact that they do not work together often lead to contradictory policies being issued by different state departments. And some other notable examples are, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture provides subsidies to use of chemical fertilization to improve crop yields. And on the other hand, the Ministry of Environment, Forest, promote organic farming to reduce environmental degradation. So there is no consistent policy that the two departments or ministries speak to each other and promote. Similarly, infrastructure development and environmental conservation. While the Ministry of Roads, Transport, Urban Development, push for rapid urbanization to boost economic growth, the Environment and Forest Ministry aims to conserve forests, protecting wildlife, which are often in conflict with infrastructure projects that require land acquisition and deforestation. Similarly, with labor policies and business policies, the Ministry of Labor enforces labor law that protect workers' rights, ensure fair wages, improve working conditions. And you have Minister of Commerce and Industry that advocate for relaxed labor laws and flexible employment regulation, and ease of doing business, or the public health and the economic interest. You have the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare enacting stringent health regulations to protect public health, whereas you have state excise department, finance ministries that promote the sale of tobacco, alcohol to generate revenue, leading to conflict in public health goals and the policies that come out of it. Similarly, tourism development and environmental sustainability. So you have the tourism ministry promoting infrastructure development to boost tourism, whereas you have the environment and forest ministry that advocates for sustainable tourist practices to protect natural resources and environmental degradation. So here you have these kind of incoherent and contradictory policy and governance weaken the overall democratic goals and weaken the democracy the quality of democracy that one has. So what one has seen is there's tremendous challenges in Indian democracy, and as the chair summarized the last session, enumerated some of that, and also the previous speaker in terms of the inequalities that are existing, social and economic, as well as the tremendous gap in delivery of justice existing in our things. So you have social and economic welfare, which is the widening of social um, inequalities and welfare. Um, Poverty, significant economic disparities persist. The last section of population living in poverty. You have, despite legal prohibitions and protections like the Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribe Act, you have rampant caste prejudice, discrimination, and social stratification that continue to affect many aspects of life. There is a lack of transparency and corruption. We have seen it's not a new phenomenon or restricted to the last decade, but what we have seen even previous to it, rampant corruption in governance, and the electoral bond recently is an example of that. That it remains a significant issue that affects the efficiency and effectiveness of public administration and services that are deliverable to the people. The human rights concerns, civil liberty concerns, the weaponization of institutions for silencing anti-government views, for opposition. You have seen how institutions have been used to almost decimate anti-government voices, the same voices that had a role to play, that were, that hold the government accountable. It's their role to play that. Whether it is the press, the civil society, there have been use of institutions to silence those. There is violence and discrimination against women, against minorities, against marginalized groups, against poor, against Adivasi, tribals. There is tremendous curtailment of freedom of expression. and environmental degradation, rapid industrialization and urbanization have led to significant environmental challenges, including air and water pollution, the deforestation, loss of biodiversity. All these is having a severe impact on climate change and the natural disasters that are occurring as a result of climate change. Then, although there are some environmental protection laws, enforcement and implementation of these laws are often weak, not only of environment, but all the other legal institutions and structures that exist, legal frameworks that exist, that are introduced in order to support a substantive democratic goal of economic, social welfare, rule of law, protection of fundamental rights, pluralism, diversity, tolerance, and all of that, that are seriously undermined. So, although in conclusion, one would say that although India exhibits many structural characteristics of substantive democracy, there are significant challenges in areas of social economic inequality, corruption, human rights, environmental sustainability, civil liberties protections, accountability, transparency, that hinder the realization of the. So representation of people is only one aspect of democracy. The diversity, quality, and extent of representation is equally important. The existence of independent structures and processes to ensure people's representation is accessible to everyone. The existence of independent structures and processes to ensure transparency and accountability without interference from the government. And there's a need for continued vigilance to root out power structures, policies, and governance that undermine undermine democracy. And so lack of vigilance can quickly undermine democracy and descend a nation into authoritarian rule. And so there is a need for continued efforts and reforms to address these issues and strengthen India's democratic framework, the structures of which exist, but which are being chipped away and undermined in recent times. I think I'll stop over there and look forward to discussion on this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for this engaging talk with us. And also thank you for shedding light on such an important issue and inspiring us to advocate for positive change. Before we open the floor for question, I would like to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel ji for her remarks on both of these sessions. In the meanwhile, I encourage participants to kindly put their questions in the Q&A box so we can take them after this. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, so I think both the experts have focused on very important issues. Shalini ji, she talked about how the inequality, socio-economic, cultural, and political inequality is increasing, and whatever is granted in formal democracy is not implemented, and the marginalization of the poor people is increasing. I think Vahida and Nainar ji talked about the structures and systems of democracy and differentiated between formal democracy and substantive democracy. My question to both of them is that the current debate on majoritarianism versus minority rights, because majoritarianism, as it is understood, is a philosophy that supports numerical majority of a given population, sometimes categorized as certain race or ethnic group or social caste or social class, gender, religious group, linguistic groups. They have a right to make decisions that affect the society. Now, why the democracy is understood only as electoral politics? That was the question which even Vahida ji asked. But in the context of, because this is not only a question of India. Currently, even if you see the referendum on UK about whether UK should be part of European Union or not, or the metrics referendum that we saw, or even we saw in America also, the rise of Trump. So globally, we see that some of the sectarian
and inward-looking forces have come to power by using this logic of majoritarianism. So what are the safeguards that you have in this kind of democratic governance, which allows bullying by the majority community, and minority rights are completely subsumed, or minority rights are completely eroded? So I would like both the experts to reflect on this. Challenge.
Thank you. Perhaps Dr. Nigam would like to go first.
Okay, so now floor is open for questions.
Shalu ma'am.
Yes, sir. So, basically, my issue was like, yeah, we have, a lot of discrepancies which are, increasing over the period of years. Now, with the introduction of this neoliberal economy, we have this new kind of, situation called gig workers and gig economy. So, I just wondering, that the people who have not chosen any research topic, if you can, pitch in and do this kind of research on, this issue, because these are the new kind of practices, the labor practices which are coming up, and we don't have any laws. Suppose that there are few labor codes which will be going to be implemented, and the government says that the labor code will take care of the rights of these kind of workers, but what are the problems they are facing? What are the particular aspect of their work? So the research on this kind of, and if we could have intercity kind of research where people from different cities, if they are there, agree and can continue. I know this is just a possibility. I'm thinking loudly. So this could be one of the possibility. Yeah, but the thing is that a lot of things are happening at the ground level, and we have to see that where do we stand, and what kind of stand we are taking, that how can we change the things at the ground level, specifically if we talk about the rights of marginalized, if we talk about right to food, right to education, all those kind of basic human rights. How should we ensure that people, people are being, they get their minimum rights? So this is the only thing I just want to say.
Vahida.
Yeah. Thank you, Vibhuti. It's a very interesting question. And it has been something that has bogged me for the last almost 3 decades since I began my work on from the perspective of rights and democracy and the rights of the marginalized and so on. And my first understanding of what and since then I have at least advocated and holistic understanding of democracy. The first instance when I realized this particular dichotomy, if you will, was in the context of Algeria, where there was a democratic election, and FIS, the ultra right Islamist party, came to power, and it came through popular. They were formally elected, and and then there was a huge public outcry over there, and from the progressive movement, the people's movement, to say that was a problem that they have elected, and the previous government refused to cede power to the elected Islamists. Now, that is what the history has seen. Even Hitler came to power using democratic processes. He was duly elected. He did not get, his vote share was not very high, but he still was elected. Similarly, if you see in most of the you see experience, and then you have rightly pointed out certain examples that Trump getting duly elected, the Brexit referendum in the UK, or the recent EU elections that were held, in which the far right has gained power. So how would you attribute this to? Again, I would go back to my understanding of election. In all these cases, The understanding is that if you win majority, if you win X number of votes, whether it is first come, first down, passing the thing, the simple majority or whatever, and therefore you are elected. I think there is a problem with that conception itself, because what we need to believe in, I believe, if you are a candidate, this is again, I'm stating my views, which I have had for many years now, and I talk about it all the time when I talk about democracy, is that you cannot be in the cannot use the democratic system and not believe in the whole substantive aspects of democracy, which means to say that you cannot contest election if you do not believe in inclusiveness, if you do not believe in pluralism and respect for all, if you do not believe in protection of fundamental rights, if you have stated beliefs that goes against the fundamental values and principles, for example, embedded in our constitution, you cannot be a political party. You cannot propagate something that is against the law, that is against the constitution. So this understanding, that's what I began my talk by saying, that there is a understanding of democracy in the larger political consciousness as being restricted to electoral politics, to people electing their representative. But who are you? Who is coming off as being elected? Do they respect the process which is getting them elected, which is not only the electoral representation, but also a firm belief and to the constitution and the values in the constitution? If you do not have that, for example, I do not believe that those people can then be elected. You can have different opinions in how the governance system should function, but you cannot say that we cannot include the views and voice of so and so people because they are minorities or because they are certain ethnicities, because that goes against the spirit, against the values, against the constitutional morality of the nation. So if these aspects are included in this, so the democracy is not only fighting for representation of people, but fighting with a firm belief. You cannot not believe in the principles of democracy, of the principles and values and morality of the constitution, and simply use the electoral policy to come into power, and then you abrogate all the other aspects of democracy. So this is what I believe is the solution to it. And it's not just in India, as you rightly pointed out, it's happening everywhere else. Because there is a larger consciousness in understanding democracy only ruled by people, and people who are elected as majority rules, which I believe is fundamentally flawed understanding of democracy. Democracy understanding has to be holistic. So you have to believe in inclusiveness. You have to believe in protection of rights and freedoms. You have to believe in rule of law. You have to believe in social equality and welfare. You cannot, prioritize one over the other. And when you do that, it is very difficult to make that argument that we are a majority and therefore we have the right to, rule. That's my view. Thank you.
Have to go beyond the understanding of French Revolution, okay, 1789, what Rousseau said about the electoral majority. But which are the agencies now in such difficult times where there is a continuous, everywhere there is a sectarian Indian and inward-looking ideologies are prevailing it all over the globe? Which are the institutions which can safeguard the rights of minorities, no, and people, intersectionally vulnerable population? Does UN, you see UN as just a teddy bear, or UN can play important?
See, I believe UN, what UN can do at UN's level has done. UN have done and are doing. There are a lot of conventions. There are declarations, there are, there are some commissions that sit that talks about this holistic and inclusive understanding of rights and protection of rights. So that at that level there, and states are required to implement it. States are required to report to the UN on what they have done with regard to implementation. But eventually, it is a international body of nations, some of who do not believe in those in the exactly the principle that they have ratified. And so what safeguards are they? I would go back to the fundamental framework of any nation. In our country, it's our constitution and the various legal frameworks that come out of it. Those are our protections. uh, what is lacking is the complete failure of these structural protections that are there in the legislation, in the constitution, to translate that into larger social consciousness. That has been a tremendous failure. There's a huge mismatch between what the constitution says and what people believe and understand and practice. So the idea of is to reduce that gap, to eliminate that gap, in which I believe the civil society has a large role to play. And I think the election result is one aspect of how this thing has worked. Eventually it might work for some time. Rabid nationalist, right wing, majoritarian uh, ideology. But beyond a certain level, it all comes down to human needs, human rights, human dignity. And when that is being infringed upon, then there is no ground in which to. So these are the opportunities to strengthen these safeguards that exist, and to which has happened, I believe, admirably during this election. I mean, how many people have taken the constitution, the civil society organization, the anti-CAA movement by women sitting there, they had the constitution in their hand. The entire grassroots campaigning during this election prioritized the protection of constitution. So eventually these are our tools. There's no other tools that can come from outside. So thank you.
Thank you. With this optimistic note, yeah, I also believe that constitution is the touchstone. But yeah. There is a very long question. Tathagatji, can you ask?
Yeah, hi. Actually, I just wanted to know, like you rightly pointed out, that larger social consciousness right now is that democracy in India simply means election or electing a public representative to a power. But after this whole process gets over, be it at any level of the government, be it at the ward members level or the ZP level, Zilla Parishad Municipal Corporation level, or MPs level. During the tenure, if the public or citizen of the a particular constituency is not happy with the policy or the governance by a particular public representative whom they have elected, how can they voice their opinion against them apart from the judicial system in place? That's my crux of this question.
I think in recent times, these mechanisms have tremendously been undermined. I do not think there are possibilities in the sense of representation at these local levels, at the level of district collector, at the level of various officials that are that are heading the local administration at the Zilla Parishad level, Panchayat level, Zilla Parishad level, district level. That there is a head of the administration where you can make a representation about these things. But whether that also individual representation is less valued as opposed to, say, collective representation. You can mobilize and give an opinion and make a presentation. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. But that's precisely the case. What I'm saying is these accountability processes and mechanisms are not as strong. They need to be strengthened. They need to be, even the decision-making process is not necessarily transparent. To what extent are the people involved or encouraged to be involved in the decision making in all of these things. It begins with that. So if the role of the people is restricted only to election of representative, and then their involvement is until the next election, that is the problem. Is definitely a problem. There has to be a continued engagement, which means inviting people's views and opinions on the policies that are about to be implemented, inviting various public perspectives, having consultations with people at various levels on various issues. I mean, that happens at sometimes state level. You see several policies and circulars being put up on websites these days, and inviting public feedback and all that. And there are certain consultations. It happens in a very sporadic way. But whether there is a possibility of of and there are processes also to remove the representation, but they are very cumbersome and they are very difficult to access for ordinary people. So to that extent, these transparency and accountability mechanisms are not necessarily functioning the way it should, and those should be definitely improved.
All right, thank you.
Add also that in the electoral process also, money power, mafia power, power of muscle power and misogyny, they have also played a very important role against women. And we have seen over 6 rounds of elections from 1994 to 2024, how women have fought against it. The weapon of no confidence motion have been used by the local vested interest, no? And it is a one step forward, two step backward kind of a situation. But that tug of war is continuously going on. As I think Dr. Vahida and Nainar says, that we need to continuously strengthen bottom-up democracy, no? So that is very important. And I think previous 2 speakers also on day 1, all of them said that the social movements, grassroots movements, civil society organizations, they have to continuously be vigilant so that democratic systems and structures are not undermined. Yeah, brilliant session. I thoroughly enjoyed discussion. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it too.
Khushbu?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening, everyone present. I have a question to Advocate Nigam and as well as to Dr. Vahida. First, to Advocate Nigam. Legislations and legal steps strive to drive out social levels of the society, but sensitization is more important. Even if someone knows that he can be put to legal process, he takes dowry or is practicing domestic violence. Please comment on this.
Yeah, no, you are right that legal sensitization of people, that is also important, and we have to work at various levels. And if you study about the domestic violence law, how it is being made and how it is being implemented, you will see that at every level the women's movement has they are taking action, because one is about making the law, another is about implementation of the law in the court. The third is about legal literacy, sensitization of judges, and sensitization of lawyers and police and all other the entire machinery. So at various level you have to also monitor the kind of judgments which are coming from the courts. So at various levels you have to make intervention. So as a civil society group, or as a women's movement, or as people collective, we have to take various steps and various measures. So as lawyers, as judges, as teachers, as whatever way we are functioning. So it is on us, like how to really see, because if you see even the making of the right to information law, even that it took a long process, kind of difficult struggle from a village in Rajasthan to making a national level law, and then to finally getting it implemented. And now what is happening is that the government is trying to dilute the law, by changing the law, by amending the law, by bringing new digital protection law. So these kind of things have to be countered at every step. So just making of law is not the one thing. We have to talk about its implementation at various levels. So of course, grassroots level, literacy or whatever legal literacy you can say, and also about gender sensitization, but also about monitoring, how the government is, they're trying to dilute the law. So similarly, if we talk about domestic violence law, the courts are now saying that this law is being misused, abused by women. Now you have to counter that. So these are the kind of processes you have to, take up. So I think I have answered.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah, thank you so much. And Dr. Vahida, I have a question for you as well. You said continued vigilance to root out power structures, policies, and governance that undermine democracy. Hello.
Yes, sure. I'm listening.
Sorry, my dogs have intervened actually. Yeah, continued vigilance to root out power structures, policies, and governance that undermine democracy. It is very difficult. How to practically it can be implemented?
You see, again, I would give examples of what's happening, around here. When there is, I'll go back to just one comment. I mean, Dr. Nigam has answered the question, and I agree to everything she has said. Just to add one more point, and then it will segue to your current question, is the politics, and when we are talking of democracy and the quality of democracy that we have, what another significantly but a little somewhat dangerous thing that has happened in our democracy over the past few years is the criminalization, the number of representatives that are being elected with criminal cases against them. So you see what the so-called the people up there, the leaders who the people are supposed to follow, if they themselves have criminal cases, quite a few of them has cases of violence against women, of either domestic violence or sexual related violence, of as serious as rape and other kinds of abuse of women. If that is the kind of role model one is elected, how is it that people at ordinary level can that it passes a message that you do not necessarily have to adhere to law? So you can demand dowry and you can do whatever, because people in leaders, you can still be elected. These are laws that exist only on paper. So that sensitization has I believe over the years has demeaned the politics as well. So that is another major. So if people who are supposed to make laws, sit in the parliament and make laws, are themselves lawbreakers, what quality of law would you get, and what kind of implementation would that affect? That is also one of the reasons why several laws are being undermined, are being diluted. The impact of that is also one of the reasons. So this, when we say continued vigilance, is to kind of keep pointing this out, to keep raising your voices against all of these issues. This is one issue, the sensitization aspect. Keep raising your voices in whatever capacity you are, like Dr. Nigam said, no matter what kind of location you are stated and what kind of profession you are. In your own ways, you kind of highlight these issues. It is when it comes to larger public consciousness that change happens, that something stops. So that is the only way. And these are not, how do you call, an immediate something that gives immediate results. These are continuous, these are, consistently needs to be done, and it's a long-term process. And every time there is a weakening of this vigilance is when I believe regressive ideologies and regressive policies get implemented and passed. So there are no shortcuts to this, I believe.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, can I ask?
Sure.
Good evening, distinguished faculties and my co-fellows. My question first is from Advocate Nigam, and then it is tangentially segmenting to a small section of what Dr. Nainar presented. So, yeah, first from Advocate Nigam, I wanted to ask that, ma'am, you said hunger is political. So, but you also mentioned, like, you very nicely and thoroughly talked about all the policies, laws, and schemes that exist already in India. But despite those policies, why is hunger still political? I would like to understand what do you mean by the term phrase hunger is political, and how law, public policy intertwine to make it better. And if despite these existing policies, the issue is still made political, how will we as policy scholars, researchers, or policy analysts fit into this entire paradigm? And from Dr. Nayana, although my question has been answered mostly by whatever discussion has happened, still I would like to make this point and understand further that, ma'am, what you talked about in your presentation about the weak democratic goals, I really enjoyed the entire one thing versus another thing that you mentioned. So, after acknowledging and understanding the entire discussion that we have had, can we say that it is policies versus politics? So that I would like to understand.
Dr. Nigam would like to go first.
I'll answer. So when you say hunger is political, yeah, hunger is, I'm saying hunger is political because what is happening is that earlier, when the country got independence, at that point in time, of course, the country, it lacks resources because the Britishers have exploited the country. They have taken all the resources. There were a lot of famines, and nothing was being done at the ground level. But now 70 years later, we are talking about 5 trillion economy, and we're talking about how we are the 5th largest economy, or we are talking about all those things. But what is happening at the ground level? Why there we also have so many poor people? So why the wealth which is being created for past 70 years, why it is not being distributed? So what is the reason for that? So when I look at the reason, what I personally feel is that it is more of a political kind of question, that because maybe the politicians are not willing to have a policy which is more distributive, which talks about distributive justice, which talks about that everyone should at least have a minimum kind of resources to have a dignified life, and this is being given in our constitution. If we talk about Article 21, if we talk about preamble, we talk about social justice, economic justice, and all kind of justice and rights you're talking about within the constitution. So why there are so many people who are still dying of starvation and hunger, and they don't have any rights to shelter? So that's why I'm saying that it is more of a political will of the people, or is it what will you say that what is the reason for so much of disparity when we have India is producing so many billionaires, and there is a wealth, but then why this wealth is not reaching at the ground level when we talk about the principles of equality and justice and everything in the constitution? So this is my whole thing about hunger is a political issue, and what can we do as researchers, scholars, policymakers? Of course, we have to talk about these issues. We have to continuously raise this issue that we have to talk about inclusive policies. So when we talk about right to food, so okay, right to food ka law ban gaya, but then now what next? If the law is not being implemented properly, and the food right to food is not only limited to so food in a plate. 5 kilo ration is not sufficient. 5 kilo kind of ration, but it is also about employment of people, because once people are employed, they are self-sufficient. No need to distribute 5 kgs ration or whatever. So you have to talk about employment. You have to talk about strengthening people, the common people, about through education, through skill development, through various other. So why for 70 years we have failed to do all these things? These are the largest questions which I want to raise. where are we lacking? For past 70 years, we have so many policies and so many things which are happening. So now, can we start looking at back, learning from our mistakes and do something better? This is what I really want to say. So even as policymakers, what can we do? We have to start thinking in that terms that, what should we do so that people become self-sufficient? In strengthening people and giving them power. This is what I feel should be done. So I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you for your question. Your question was basically, is it at some level policies versus politics? You see, who makes policies, and who under which direction under what direction is our policies made? So in our country, policies are made by bureaucrats, the people who come out of various public administration, education, and they do the actual job of writing the policies. But where do the guy and they presumably, at least to the extent that I know, they are schooled. When they are schooled in public administration, they pass out there, they are schooled in these various aspects of democracy. This is what I talked about as the substantive aspects of democracy. They are duty bound to abide by the constitution. They are duty bound to act within the rules and regulations of whatever area that they are functioning in, or ministry they are functioning in. And they are bound to act upon, and presumably they are they do that. In their policies they do that, but eventually the policies have to be implemented and discussed by people who direct those policies, meaning that's where the politics enters. To the extent that these policies that are made, which are within the framework of constitution, within the framework of democratic substantive democracy goals, do not and the politics meet their goals and their aims are aligned, there is no worsening. But problem happens when the policies are made, for example, to towards inclusive education, for example, and you have politics, because those who are heading those ministries are the ones that bring that politics. If they say that certain policies are not to be implemented, there is nothing that the policies, there has been cases where the policies cannot proceed. And I can certainly talk about, for example, scholarships for minorities, which for many years until 2014 was accessed. What is it called? Post-matriculate scholarship. I had written a paper on this. That was accessed by minorities, significantly by minority Muslims. And since 14, there has been a consistent drop in access to these post-matric scholarship, to the extent that they are almost negligible in terms of the amount, the extent to which these are. So when these are accessed by minorities. So the extent to which policies, even when existent, can be accessed for the purpose it was made, also depend on what are the politics governing that. So if the politics of the day says that this is an appeasement process and we do not wish to have resources allocated to minorities, what is it that the policymakers can do? I mean, they can stand up to the government to the extent they can, but politics has a way of impeding policy if they do not align with the overall constitutional framework. So that's how I see it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Very beautifully and elaborately put. If I am allowed to ask one more question, I would like to know a sociologist's perspective from Professor Patel on the statement that hunger is political, especially when ma'am also mentioned that employment is being in a scarce in the country. But when I see other articles, when I read that while employment is a problem, employability is also another problem. So how all this links, if I can get your perspective?
I think we can historically, if we see in the colonial times, all the writings on drought and hunger in India during colonial times were only talking about the Indian agriculture dependent on rainfall, no, which was not true actually, because the food grains were diverted to the soldiers who were fighting First World War. There was an artificial scarcity created in the political decision of East India Company of diverting the grain and pulses for war purpose created hunger in India. Similarly, we can say at one level, we economists say that we have enough buffer stock. Even during the pandemic, we had 11%. That was the only sector which was growing, agriculture, industrial, all other sectors were closed down, okay? But still, why did we have, there was enough grain in this thing, 15% of the Indian grains in the FCI godowns are eaten up by rodents. They get destroyed during, because there are no good warehouses. So many quintals get destroyed during rain and because of the warming. I have seen in Orissa, in the forest, heaps of mountains of rice of FCI go down without any protection, just lying in the open. But if a tribal child or a tribal woman goes near it to take, they said they are called thieves. They are incarcerated. There is a police with a loaded rifle who would shoot them, and they have impunity. So this is what, when we say politics, it's a tug of war, power relations, the subordination, domination relationship that you have, that why certain people, and if you're purchasing power, if you can buy from Mac, currently also, we have 4 markets. One is a PDS market, things being sold through PDS, subsidized. Then you have a cooperatives and fair price shops. You have a holders who sell everything at the, you should go to the working class area. How they, even during the pandemic, it was, kerosene was being sold for 40 rupees per liter. So that is a black market. And then you have a market which is a completely gray market. What we call is that where the complete criminalization takes place. So all this, who allows this multiplicity of the markets or the segmented markets being allowed? Why 6% of this of the labor force only is in the organized sector, which gets protection of labor legislation, while 94% of the workers, they face law of jungle. Okay, the Dr. Shalu Nigam gave an example of gig workers. Okay, gig workers are, at least they know a little bit of technology and they are moderately educated. But what happens to rest of the people? Why are they hungry? During the pandemic, why 3 crore migrant workers were starving? They were walking on the roads. Do you think that there were no urban houses? Or it happened only because they could not pay their rent, because their employers did not give them any wages when the lockdown was there. Even their legitimate wages of first 16 days of March, from because lockdown was declared on 16th of March. Why weren't they paid, and why there was no impunity? Why didn't state act upon these employers who did not even pay them their legitimate wage, leave aside after the lockdown? So here comes the politics. That this is why hunger is political. When you go to Egypt, pita bread is state sponsored. Okay, anybody, whether you want to eat it or not, it's your choice. But state is providing pita bread. When in Kerala, you have a universalization of PDS. If you are rich and you want to eat basmati rice, it's your choice. But if you want a parboiled rice, it's a political decision of the state government to universalize public distribution system. If you go to Thailand, there is a universalization of healthcare. Thailand is poorer than us, okay? And it is a political decision. So whether you go to private hospital and if you have enough money to do that, that is your choice. But the state is giving you public health facilities. There may be some limitations in it. So these are very important political decisions that you take in the parliament, at a subnational level, in the legislative assembly. Why do you see so much differentiation between quality of life in, say, Tamil Nadu or Kerala on the one hand and rest of the states? When Mr. MGR became the superstar of Tamil Nadu film industry, became a chief minister, first thing he said that nobody in my state will go hungry. When he was a child, he was extremely poor. It was his neighbor who used to give him sambar with all the vegetables and rice, and that made him survive. So first thing when he became chief minister, he started was a midday meal program. And this is not a midday meal program runs centrally. It's the people in the community, they cook the meal according to their taste. So the state gives the budget. So these are the political decisions. That's why you saw, you don't get the reports of death due to hunger in Tamil Nadu, while you would get such reports from Kalahandi in Odisha or Melghat in Maharashtra. Do you think Maharashtra is one of the richest states? If you go by the gross domestic product, 4 states are extremely rich. They are Maharashtra, Gujarat, Punjab, and Haryana. When Punjab Minister of Food Distribution, he took a decision of diverting best quality of wheat for production of beer. It was the women in the Panchayati Raj institution. They were up in arm against. They said, how dare you do that? This wheat is meant for the people who are poor. PDS, public distribution systems wheat. How can it be diverted for production of beer? Punjab already was flooded with enough varieties of alcohol. On the contrary, in every 2 kilometers on the state highway and national highway, there used to be alcohol shop. And these women, they said that we convert all these alcohol shops into shops for lassi and fruit juice. So this is the political decision that women in Panchayati Raj institutions took, no? So politics is in command when it comes to basic survival needs. I think ample examples given by Vahida and Shalu, Dr. Shalu, were prove that this kind of opinion for public policy, legislation, and its judicious implementation, I think, as Mr. Shailesh Gandhi also told, and the example of Mr. Chachra in the previous lecture also said that these are not the issues which are political. They are determined by whose side you are. You can't avoid taking sides. No, that's what Dr. Vahida also said, that you have to take sides where you are. Okay, when there is such a gross inequality in the society, whose interest would you defend? Maybe as an individual, you may be defeated. As an individual bureaucrat or individual politician or individual citizen, you may not be so effective. But when you come together with many others, then we can bring the transformative change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, Nikhil Kumar. I liked your question very much.
Khushbuji, your hand is still raised. So is there any further question from your side?
Okay.
No, nothing.
No.
Okay. So thank you to all the panelists for answering all the questions in such an elaborative way. Now we are moving forward to our next session. I am honored to invite Professor Dr. Ceena Paulji, Professor, Department of Economics, MD Shah College of Women, Mumbai, to shed light on essays and research article writing. We welcome you, ma'am. The floor is all yours.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Professor.
Yes, ma'am.
First and foremost, let me thank Professor Vibhuti Patel for inviting me and Impact and Policy Research Institute for inviting me. With this, let us start with my topic. I'm just sharing. Is it visible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make it full screen, no? Is it full screen? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
visible. The full screen is visible, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, again, good evening. So the topic what has been given to me is essays and research article writing. That is a topic which has been given. Now, before going into research paper and essay, let us understand what is research. Now, I have taken the definition of Clover and Balze over here. Now, according to them, research is what? It's a process of systematically obtaining accurate answers to significant and pertinent questions by the use of scientific method of gathering and interpreting information. So what is important in this definition?
Can you hear us, Professor Paul?
I thought I also can't hear her. I think she'll have to change her style of this thing, no? PPT, because we are seeing two images which must be taking more bandwidth.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yeah. So, because two slides at a time take a lot of, yeah.
Oh, ma'am dropped out.
Yeah. Because of the rains in Mumbai, no, things are bit. Yeah. She will come back. Yeah. Do you have her PPT, Dr. Arjun Kumar?
No, ma'am. I'll just call her and take it from.
Yeah. Oh my God. So you can't join from your smartphone? Please try your smartphone. Yeah. Yeah, I think because we were seeing two slides at a time, no? So that must have created problem of bandwidth. So if you send your PPT to Dr. Arjun Kumar, he will show the PPT and you speak from your smartphone. Yeah, that is okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Meanwhile, if any fellows want to discuss their creative project with Shalu ma'am and Professor Patel, they can do that. Abstracts also.
So we can take up any project ideas.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible. Please go ahead, ma'am. Yeah.
I have forwarded the PPT to Kumar sir.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Uh,
He will share your PPT. You
He'll
just
share
speak,
the
ma'am.
PPT.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
start speaking, ma'am.
Yeah. So again, I'll just start.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, start. Change your name, ma'am. It is showing Sri Shailesh Gandhi. Make it Ceena Paul. Yeah. Yeah, fine. Now we can see your name.
Questions.
Yes. Please go ahead.
By the use of scientific method and gathering and interpreting. Interpreting information. Now, when we convert this into a written format, you have a research paper. And what is an essay? Essay, as I told you, it is basically, it expresses author's personal viewpoint on a particular subject. Now, let us look at what are the various types of research which are available in social science. The different types of research which we can cover under the social science. I would request someone to share the PPT now.
Yes, ma'am. Just a couple of seconds. I'm just sharing.
Ceena ji, are you able to see the?
Yeah, I am able to see now.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Go ahead.
First and foremost, I am extremely sorry for this technical issue.
Yeah. It's raining in Bombay. Don't worry. You are not. Okay.
I think my Wi-Fi got disconnected. I think that is the problem. I think so.
Yeah. That's
okay. Can I go to the next slide?
Yeah. Next slide. Priyanka ji. Okay.
Okay. Go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Types
So,
of
I was discussing about the different types of social science research. Now, I have given a list of different types of research. The first one is a descriptive research. For example, when we are analyzing the census data, if you note, I had given up 3 research papers as reading. In one of the papers, you will see the author as describes the census data of Palghar, where the researcher is talking about the issues which are faced by Palghar adolescents. So the first one is a descriptive research where we are analyzing census data. The next one is an exploratory research. Now, what is exploratory research? Now, if you want to collect certain information, more information of a particular study, then it becomes an exploratory research. Then is an explanatory research. When if you want to understand the cause and effect of something, that is an exploratory research. For example, you want to know, Government of India has come up with RTE. What is the impact of that on the school education? That becomes your exploratory research. Then you have done evaluative research. Now, for example, Manrega is there for the last so many years. What is the impact of Manrega on poverty? What is the impact of Manrega on hunger? That becomes your evaluative research. Then you have a cross-sectional research. For example, just after the election, you had exit poll. When data is collected from a cross-section, that becomes your cross-sectional research. For example, again in the research papers, what I have forwarded, one of the research paper is a cross-sectional research where data was collected from the 11th standard students as well as the 12th standard students. 1,500 students data was collected, and from there, and this research was conducted by MD Shah Mahila College in Seva Shakti, where they tried to understand what is the perception of the girl children as far as menstrual hygiene is concerned. So this is your cross-sectional research. Can I see the next slide? Next is a longitudinal research. Now, when I want to understand data, for example, I want to know the performance of students. for the last 10 years. So that becomes my longitudinal research. I want to do comparative research. Now I want to do research the graduates in Bombay and the graduates in Delhi. That becomes my comparative research. Then I have qualitative research. Can I go back? In qualitative research, you are only taking, you want to understand the human behavior. Again, in one of the papers, what I have forwarded, quality research has also been included. Then there's a quantitative research where we are depending upon numbers, where you are collecting numbers. Again, in one of the papers, what I forwarded, we have used both qualitative and quantitative research. That becomes the mixed method research. Can I go to the next? Okay, now, so we have understood what is research, what are the different types of social science researches which are available. Now we are going to write a research paper. So before writing the research paper, the first thing is you have to understand the assignment. What is the due date? Do you have to submit the paper within 10 days, 15? That is very important. Next is the length of the assignment, whether you have to present the paper in 2000 words, 3000 words. Now, can you use primary data? Can you use secondary data? This and when, what is the mode of submission? What is the format? Can you go to the next slide? Okay, here I have given some research essay guidelines. For example, here they are talking about the style, they're talking about the language, what you abbreviations, italics, all these. So whenever you're writing an assignment, first thing you have to see what is the organizer, what he expects from you as far as all these issues are concerned. Now let's go to the next slide. Okay, now, so you know your assignment, you know what type of data you have to use. The organizer may be saying you can use primary data, secondary. So you're ready with all that. The next important thing is, next step is, will be your research paper? On what topic are you going to do research paper? You have a range of research topic which is available. So the first ideal thing will be you are going to brainstorm with your teacher, or you are going to look at what are your contemporaries, on what area are they working. Next can be that from your reading you have got some inspiration. This can be some of the ways where you can choose your research topic. Okay, now you have decided the research topic. Next is you have to decide which is your area of interest. Where is a research gap? Now, one thing is very clear. Whenever you're doing research, you are going to do research in that area where there is a visible research gap. Research gap is there. You cannot do things where there is no research gap. Now, not only there is research gap, whether that fits the requirement of your assignment, that will be your concern. After looking up all this, you are going to decide your research topic. Next slide, please. Now, I have given some research papers over here. Gender pay gap is there, gender equality in the workplace, international human education in respect of. These are few of the research paper topics which you can choose for doing research. Next one. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, the step 3, now you have decided your broad area. Next step will be to gather information. What others, for example, gender pay, what others have written about this? What is their viewpoint? After that, you are going to know from where are you going to get information about this. You can read articles, you can read textbooks, and nowadays you get a lot of information on internet. After doing that, you should have a topic clarification, because for example, gender pay. Gender pay is a big, huge topic. Out of that, which area are you going to work? That you have to decide. After deciding the area, the next step will be writing a thesis statement. Now, there may be various myths which is involved in the topic. All this, in a preliminary research, you can debunk all that. Next step. Next. Okay, so you have decided your research topic. After deciding your research topic, the next thing will be deciding the thesis statement. In case if you're not able to write the thesis statement, you can go for research questions. Now, what is a research thesis statement? Now, a thesis statement should include or line, a sentence or two, now which summarizes the main idea of your paper. It control. Now, when you're writing your paper should not go beyond what is written in your thesis statement. It should be clear. It should be straight. There should not be ambiguous, and it should be easy for the writer's claim or judgment about the reading or personal experience. Next one. Okay, if you are not okay with the research thesis statement, next thing what you can do is create research questions. Can I go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Some of the thesis statement I have quoted. Can we go to the next one? As I told you, sometimes it is difficult to prepare a thesis statement. So what will be the next thing? You can prepare certain questions. Now, how this question should be? This question should be original. It should have some kind of, you should be specific, and it should be widely applicable in the scientific community. So your question, and it is always advisable in one research paper, you are addressing one question. You should not have a range of questions. You should have a one or two questions. That is a maximum what you should handle in one research paper. Next one. Next slide, please. Okay, these are few of the research questions I have pointed out over here. Next. Okay, now you are ready with your topic, you're ready with your thesis statement, you're ready with your question. Next is you have to collect supporting evidence. For example, I am working on the gender pay, which is there existing in the airlines industry. So my next step will be collecting evidences to support my question. Okay. So that will be my next step. Now, okay, now I have done my preliminary research I have done. Now, next step is creating a paper outline. In my paper outline, first step will be my abstract, and then there will be 4 elements. What will be the 4 elements? Introduction, method, result, and discussion. Then each section should have a different objective. Can I go to the introduction part? First I'll cover introduction. In abstract, what are you going to write? If, for example, your paper is of 3,000 words, in abstract, you should be writing in 1 or 2 paragraphs. What have you written in your entire paper? It should give a synopsis of your paper. After reading the abstract, the reader should decide whether he should read the entire paper or he should not read the entire paper. The next one. Introduction. Now, introduction, what are you going to include? In introduction, you are going to talk about the historical background of the area of investigation. You are going to talk, why have you chosen this topic? There were so many topics. Why have you chosen? What is the importance of this topic? Now, what is the research gap? What are the objectives of your research study? What are the research questions? What you have decided to talk over here? Next is review of literature. Now, it depends upon the words, what has been in the assignment. If the number of words given is more, you can include more review of literature. Otherwise, you should include only few articles over there. Next. Okay, the method is very important. In method, you are going to include the research design. Method. Can I go to the previous slide, please? In method, what are you going to talk? You are going to talk about the research design. In the research design, you are going to give a blueprint of how are you going to conduct your research. What step next will be the sampling. Or what is your population? What is the sampling procedure? Whether you're using probability sampling, non-probability sampling, or you're using a mixed sampling. Next slide. Are you going to use an intervention? Now, for example, I want to understand if a PPT is used, what will be the performance of the students? So this becomes an intervention. If I'm using an intervention in my study, I have to explain what are the interventions which are used. Next is whether there is an independent variable or dependent variable. That also should be included in my method. Then from where are you going to collect the data? How are you going to collect the data? For example, are you taking primary data? You are doing the secondary data. And what other tools? Are you using survey? Are you using quiz? Are you using case study, direct observation? This will be as far as your tools and methods are concerned. Okay, now you have collected your data. Next comes your statistical tools, which are going to use in analyzing the data. Next one. Okay, now you have done the analysis. Next comes your results. After the analysis is done, in the results section, you are going to talk about the gathered information is tabulated, how it is, what are the statistical analysis you have done, present your key findings, answer you have listed out the questions, what are your answers to these questions, if there is any secondary finding. In discussion, you are going to list out your main finding, compare your findings with other study. If there is a hypothesis, you can accept the hypothesis, you can reject the hypothesis. If there is no hypothesis, you are going to talk about your generalization. What in general have this paper discovered? Next one. Now, next step will be conclusion. In conclusion, what are you going to write? You are going to make the final, what is the study talking about? Take the problem statement, summarize the overall finding, suggest the key takeaways from your paper. So this is as far as your IMRD is concerned. I is your introduction, M is your all the other steps. Next one. Okay, now what is the step 7? In step 7, you are actually going to write the research paper. You have already created your outline. In next step will be writing the first draft of your research paper. When you're writing the first draft, you have to pay attention to clear organization, logical argument, your thoughts upon revisiting the text. All that should be included in your first draft. Next one. Now, when you're creating a paragraph, you should be very careful. In the first line of your paragraph, you should be able to talk about what is this paragraph going to talk about, how this paragraph is useful as far as your research is concerned. Now, for example, you are making a statement. The following portion of your paragraph should give evidences of the justification of the topic sentence. Next. Okay, what is the step 8? That will be the second draft. In the second draft, you are going to see to that, remove the points where you have already your questions. If in the second draft, you should eliminate those areas which is not included in your research questions, which is, if you feel you're not able to substantiate, remove them, rearrange your ideas. That will be your step 8. Next one. Step 9. Very important is step 9. In case you are using any resources, that has to be included in, you have to cite the resources so that you can avoid plagiarism. Now, there are various style of citation. You can use APA and you can use MLA. There are Chicago style. There are various styles which this is a very crucial. If you are citing any resources, that has to be recorded. You have to include the page number, or majority of you all must be knowing what all care you have to take over here. Next one. Okay, now comes your revision process. So you have done your first draft, you have done your second draft. In the revision process, what are you going to talk? You're going to see that the content of each paragraph is clear. Each sentence should support your topic sentence. There is no unnecessary information. Technical terms are explained. If there is a grammatical error, that is eliminated. If there is a typo error, all that unnecessary word should be deleted. Next. So this is as far as writing a research paper is concerned. So in total, there are 10 steps. The first step is very important, because when you're choosing a research topic, you should be very careful whether you are going to do justice, because there are many research topics which is very difficult to do research. So whenever you're choosing your research topic, the first thing what you have to take care is whether you will be able to do research. And the next is a time frame which has been given. For example, you have been given a time frame of 3 months. You should, as far as possible, try to settle with primary sources rather than going for secondary sources. So these are a few of the tips what I have given you. If you have something else, you can ask. I have given 3 readings where the exact whatever I have discussed, that method has been followed in the 3 readings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I'm sorry for the technical glitch.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this engaging talk. Now, I will again invite Professor Vibhuti Patel ji for her remarks on this session. Meanwhile, I again encourage the participants to kindly put their questions on the Q&A box so that we can take them after this session. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Professor Ceena Paul, for systematically explaining how the research paper is being written. And this is not only for one particular discipline. The structure which Professor Ceena Paul has explained to us goes for all social science researches, scientific research papers, they're pure science, legal studies researchers. So the whole skeleton of the research and with your disciplinary input, you can adjust to the whole 10 steps, which Professor Ceena Paul has very lucidly explained to us. Thank you very much. Dr. Shalu Nigam, would you like to say about the legal research?
No, surely, this explains the entire process of legal research also, because we have social legal research and, even the economic economic and legal research, if we are doing, we can follow the same method, because this is what we are going to apply for, especially from the policy perspective and the legislative perspective. And also, when we talk about the legal research, we also include the judgments, how the laws are made and all these kind of things you can also include. So when you're writing paper for this particular program, and if you're choosing any topic, you can also include the judgments and how the laws are being made and so on. So you can just include, so we can have a wider perspective of sociology as well as law.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary researches, and all that you have the same structure.
Is there any question from the attendees? If you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
This is Nikhil again. So I wish to ask, my question is two-part question. First is whether do we have to, when we are writing the research article, so do we have to do the primary research or we can go by the secondary research as well? And second question is which style of writing do we have to follow? As ma'am mentioned, there is APA. I am aware of APA, but ma'am mentioned of MLA as well. So which writing style do we prefer?
Professor Ceena Paul.
Yeah. Now, as I told you, very crucial time is the time what is given. Now, I think in the next week, you have to present a small abstract. So the time which is available with you is very limited. So first priority should be looking at the time. So you don't have enough time to go for a primary research. So it will be
You can also do it on the existing body of knowledge and critically reflect on it and bring the nuances from your own observation and this. And if it is possible, you can also come up with a small qualitative study or case studies or interviews. Your sample can be small if you are doing primary research, but it all depends. What's the time constraint, or where are you located, what topic you have chosen. Accordingly, you can decide whether you want to go mixed method, you want to follow, or you want to focus only on the interviews or surveys or case studies, or you can also do the critical reflection on the existing body of researches. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Also, I would like to add that for the research style writing and the research guidelines, how to go about it, you can always look at the guideline document that is provided to you on your respective emails. You'll just find the attachment at the bottom of the email. Just go through that, and if you still have some confusion, you want to clarify something, you can write to us on the email and we'll try to clarify it for you as soon as possible.
So what Professor Ceena Paul told us about the various styles of referencing, generally any academic journal or any university, they have their own style of referencing, no? So whether it's Oxford style or Cambridge style or AP, American Psychological Association style. So that is decided by the institutions. But here, largely popular style of referencing in India, we can see in all interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary or even medical epidemiological studies and all, we go by APA style. Yeah. But in Europe, you have another style. America and Canada, you have another style. Australia and New Zealand, they have some publishing houses and the journals. They also give you style sheet in which you have to write your research paper.
I hope your question is answered, Nikhilji.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving
Yes,
forward.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any question from anybody else among the panelists, among the participants?
Ishan Singh.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, as a student, what I have faced is finding the research gap. It's very difficult for me to like find a research gap on which I can research. So, my question is, should I first look for the topic or the field that I am going to research, or should I look for research gap first? And accordingly, choose the field and topic. Yeah, that's my question.
Dr. Ceena Paul, would you like to answer?
Yeah. What is research? Something new. So it is very essential that there should be a research gap. So for me, if I want to do any research, my first step is going to find out the research gap, because otherwise there is no meaning of doing this research, because research means you have to create something new. So the first step will be to find out the research gap.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, because when you do the literature scan or the existing body of literature and research is available, what are the areas, if you are doing, say, area study, you may have a good area study of Indore, but not of Delhi, okay? So that is the research gap. So you have to prove what is your USP of research. In what way is it going to give new knowledge to the existing body of literature available? So that is called research gap. Or sometimes it is research gap in terms of perspective, that okay, it talks about the universalization of education, but within that it doesn't talk about the girl child education, or it doesn't bring into perspective education of person with disability, or it completely oblivious to the children, to the education of transgender children. So these are all research gaps can be at 3 levels. One, which are the areas it is covering? So you may say that development of India, but you focus only on urban. So the research gap is that there is no focus on rural and tribal areas. Or you can, so that is a jurisdiction in terms of what are the limitations of jurisdiction. The second one is that ideological perspective, whether it is certain issues are completely ignored, certain in your thinking, you just don't bring into perspective. It is not a holistic understanding of the problem. And the third one can be of omission. Like you may be studying, say, the question of violence against women, but you are only focusing on law. You are not focusing on the grounded reality. So that is also a research gap, that okay, there is a good legal study, but it doesn't show to what extent these laws are implemented. So research gap can be of from your perspective, from your objectives or goals or vision, and what you want to find out, which are the areas which are left out by other researchers, and that is what you are going to fill in. So you will fill in the research gap in your particular domain. No, so that is called. So generally, when you do any research, something new, you have to prove that you have contributed something new. Even when we accept any dissertation for evaluation, we have to justify that in what way this dissertation is contributing to new knowledge. So research gap helps you to identify areas of new knowledge that you would be generating as a researcher. Thank you.
Add over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I just want to say that regarding research gap, now there are various studies which has been done on working women. So one of my students found out that there is no work done on agri community working women. So she started working on agri community. Agri is one segment in Maharashtra. So there was no work done on agri working women. And my student started working on that women who are from the agri community.
They were historically colonial times. They were classified as a denotified and nomadic tribe and also criminal tribe. No? So there are not much studies on it.
Ma'am, so just to reiterate and reconfirm, the research gap is something like can be understood as one variable which is not explored in that particular research setup or paradigm.
Yeah.
For example, okay, thank
to
you.
provide a rationale for your inquiry. Research gap is in relation to your research endeavor.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
In our college, we had done a study on female adolescents' viewpoint on menstrual hygiene. Now, the age group, what we had picked up, no research was done in that age group. And so that became a research gap for us.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the answer. I think it's clear to me now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any more question from the participants? Someone posted a question as anonymous attendee. How important is it to narrow down the research topic and with time constraint, how to work out?
Professor Ceena.
Yeah, already I think they have given the area of study, I think. Already that list has been given.
Yeah, by
so
IMPRI is given, yeah.
IMPRI has given it. So I think it is better to depend upon them rather than looking out outside. Because as everyone has been repeatedly telling, that time constraint is very important.
Time constraints and also context, no? We need to, all the stakeholders, to what extent they are in touch with us. We can provide and facilitate the research endeavor. That is also very important. Like you may do something on the space research, but if we don't have any direct connection or direct contacts in ISRO, then it would be difficult. Then you will have to make an effort to identify the person, no, or the stakeholders.
First, when you're choosing the topic, the first concern should be whether I will be able to do research on this topic, whether data is available. If data is not available, your thesis statement must be very good. It must be but it can give a lot of info. But the problem is I'm unable to do research on this. So first variable should be, is data available?
Yeah. You see that during the pandemic lockdown, right? The pandemic triggered lockdown. Most of the researchers, whether they were MPhil or PhD researchers, they had to change their jurisdiction and narrow down, because only those who were available for interview on platform, like Zoom online platform or mobile phone, they could interview them. So many researchers had to change their topic, they had to change the sample size, even the jurisdiction they had to change, the areas in which there was a total lockdown, they could not even enter as researchers. So you have to see the practicality in terms of your ability to invest time, energy, and also the outside forces which also determine. Like we see that during monsoon, in so many times in monsoon, there are areas which lose connectivity. So researchers can't go there. So that's what happened. Even things like census, which is the most important research that our country does, had to be postponed. 2021 census we could not get because of the pandemic. No?
I guess the question is answered very elaboratively. We'll wait for 30 seconds more if there are any further questions. Okay, so I don't think there are any further questions. Firstly, I would like to thank Ma'am Sheena Paulji. We at IMPRI hope you continue to collaborate with us in the future. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel ji and Professor Shalu Nigam ji for their final remarks.
Thank you, Dipanjan. I think in the conclusion, I would like to say that all three presentations were extremely important. And I have already commented the term, which is about democracy, we had a major dialogue, and which was coined in the 5th century BCE to denote the political systems of Athens, the Greek city-state. The democracy is a much more a matter of a political philosophy, and I think that was unfolded in Dr. Vahida's lecture. And Dr. Shalu Nigam, she said that how does it pans out when it comes to social policy and legislation. So the social contract theory, which talked about the legitimacy of government, is based on the consent of the governed. That means electoral politics versus substantive politics. The question of whether majority in electoral victory is the thumb rule, or we need to be concerned about social security, minority rights, and make the democracy more holistic. That is very important. But on the whole, democracy is essentially the idea that political sovereignty resides at the level of individual. But in this sense, political community derives its supreme power and authority from the consent of people within the community. And three core elements of that constitutes democracies. First is individual sovereignty, equality among the citizens, democratic norms and values, and affirmative action. So they are very important, and that's why when we talk about the democratic governance, we need to, as all our both the speakers talked about accountability, transparency, efficacy, and inclusion. So these are very important concerns that we have. And our last session we had about how to write the research paper is also very, Dr. Ceena Paul has explained to us all the features and step by step how to conduct our research and come up with from the idea stage of idea to actual paper writing. That has been explained, and I think I found all three sessions extremely rewarding to me personally, and I'm sure to all the participants. Thank you. Dr. Shalu.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, and thank you to all the speakers and all the participants who have so actively they have asked so important questions. So it's a very fruitful session. We have learned a lot, and I'll request you to please kindly look at the last year LPPYF. There is a report. You please look at that, and you can get the research ideas from there also. So you can just start choosing a topic, thinking about it, and then we can, in the next session, we can have a discussion about research topics and other things, because obviously the time is less, and then we have to really do our work fast. So I'll request you that meanwhile you can just start thinking of your research topics. So thanks.
Cohort 1 and Cohort 2, both the publications are out. Event reports as well as the papers, research papers, anthologies are correct. And they have been shared by IMPRI. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Vibhuti ma'am and Shalu Nigam ji ma'am, for your final remarks and the suggestion that you have given. Now, as we have come to end of day 2 of LPPYF, that is Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship, Cohort 3.0, Summer 24, Advancing Justice, Bridging Gaps in Public Policy Enforcement, an online national summer school program, a 1-month immersive online law and public policy awareness certificate training course and internship program, I, Dipanjali Sharma, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose a formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, New Delhi. We are grateful to our experts for the day 2 session, Dr. Vaidehi Nainar ji and Dr. Shalu Nigam ji, Professor Sheena Paul ji, and Vibhuti Patel ji for taking out their valuable time and allowing us to learn from this online certificate program. We thank our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, and our legal advisor, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ji, for convening all the sessions. We thank all our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. We look forward to welcoming you to next Tuesday on June 25th for our day 3 in this certificate training course. We are grateful if you are watching us later on YouTube or you are listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publication. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI web policy talk and web policy learning. Wishing you a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dipanjali, for conducting it so well.
Thank you, ma'am.